Hello and welcome to Shadowboxing, an MMA radio show. Except this week we're not on the radio, live on YouTube because VIC radio's off air. So, thank you for listening. If you are on YouTube, this will be posted later. Also, no fights to go over this week. There was nothing last night. The UFC's on a nice 4-week break, and that comes at the perfect time after 8 weeks of straight UFC action. So, I'll take it. I welcome it. The biggest news that came out earlier this week: Ronda Rousey will be back December 30th against Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes decided to wait for Ronda to come back instead of fighting a contender like Valentina Shevchenko or Juliana Pena, and it paid off. Ronda is returning. Ronda will be back in the cage. This is very disappointing news to Juliana Pena, obviously, who's been way open about how Ronda Rousey does not deserve a title shot and how you don't get a title shot after getting knocked out and taking a year off. Pena was on Combat the Americas this weekend, and she made a little joke after one of the female fighters earned a title shot. She just had a little side comment like, must be nice to earn a 135-pound title shot. So she's a little bitter. I mean, it's understandable. She's dominated all of her opponents in the UFC so far, but doesn't have that one win to get her to the next level. I mean, Katzengano's a great win, but there's still Valentina Shevchenko right there at the top, and that's the fight to make. But apparently, Pena's turned it down, so that's really unfortunate. But as for Nunes versus Rousey, Nunes, BJJ black belt, judo brown belt, got a nice skill set to face Ronda Rousey with, and on top of that, excellent boxer. Her performance against Sarah McMahon was just something else. Her striking was just so crisp and perfect. And if Ronda Rousey hasn't improved since that home loss, which, I mean, she was with Emin Tarverdyan, and you can tell that her striking hasn't really improved. So, I mean, like she was against Holly Holm, I think Amanda Nunes has the ability to pick her apart and shut her down like she did with Miesha Tate. And with the BJJ black belt, judo brown belt, she won't be hard to she will be hard to just throw around and armbar like Ronda Rousey did previous to her loss against Holly Holm. But this is the most important fight of Ronda Rousey's career. If she loses, her career is all but over. If the one loss against Holly Holm shut her down and depressed her, and all that jazz shut her out for a year and made her go into acting, imagine what a second loss would do. In the biggest stage, you're coming back, all the eyes are on you. Her coming back was just a huge story already. So December 30th, there are gonna be a lot of eyes on that fight. And if she loses again on the biggest stage, well, don't think we'll ever see Ronda Rousey in the cage again if Nunes puts her out. And she has the power to. She definitely has the power to. So this is a very, very dangerous fight for Ronda Rousey. But props to her for not taking a tune-up and going right back into the fire. Because, yeah, she definitely could get her confidence back, get a quick win. But no, she's going right for the top, right for a woman that has the skill set to beat her. So this is a good move, or a dangerous move for Ronda Rousey, I should say. But props to her. That's gonna be a great fight. That's gonna be a great fight because Nunes does have a tendency sometimes to box herself into the clinch, and against Rousey, that's definitely not what you want to do. So if Nunes displays patience, sits back on her punches, and lets Ronda come to her, then there's no reason to believe that Amanda Nunes can't win this fight. Good training down there at American Top Team, and I think she definitely can. I think she definitely can beat Rousey. So that is a heck of a main event. December 30th, huge card, and definitely the biggest fight of Ronda Rousey's career. Unfortunately, UFC 206 will not be a huge card. According to Dana White, GSP will not be on the card, on the Toronto card, which is very, very disappointing. They started out with Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson in the co-main event slot and left the main event to be determined, which everyone instantly assumed, oh, that's got to be GSP. He's going to come back. But then I guess negotiations haven't gone well with GSP, and they bumped up Johnson and Cormier to the main event slot. So very disappointing stuff. The legend will stay retired. It's been just a weird situation, though, with Dana keeps saying that GSP does not want to fight, and he doesn't have like the mental state to fight. But GSP keeps saying, "I do want to fight. I'm ready to fight," and he's done these mini camps and stuff. So he might just be avoiding the truth. There's the big issue that's been reported is sponsorship, and of course GSP was making millions off sponsorships when he was in the UFC, and now he would make only a fraction of that under Reebok. So he was probably asking that that the UFC or Reebok make up the money that he would lose by not having his Under Armour sponsorship and many other sponsorships. And the UFC won't budge, and Reebok won't budge. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that GSP's caught in the crossfire of this. It would be amazing to see him come back. Yeah. That hurts. That would have been a perfect run for the UFC. Have Conor McGregor at the main event of 205, GSP at 206, Ronda at 207. That would be just amazing. So many pay-per-view buys to end the year on. But now no GSP at 206. Expect numbers to be pretty low. And yeah, the Canadian crowd's not going to be happy. I read one tweet that said, I was just as excited at the UFC Ottawa card that happened earlier this year as UFC 206, and I'm expected to pay 3 to 4 times as much to go. So pretty tough. Yeah, GSP was going to save that card. I mean, it's not like there's no good fights announced for it. The last 2 fights announced were very, very good. Nikita Krylov and Misha Serkinov, and Cub Swanson versus Doo Ho Choi. So those fights are very good. But yeah, GSP was going to make that a can't miss card. And now it's kind of just sandwiched in between 207 and 205, which is unfortunate for the Canadian crowd. Tough. Hopefully Dana's still lying. Hopefully he's still doing those public negotiation tactics that he's known for. But they did move up that Johnson and Cormier main event, co-main event to the main event slot, which makes things pretty bleak. Feel bad for Anderson Silva's son, who's been pushing for a GSP Silva fight. That would have been amazing too. Well, I hope GSP's enjoying retirement. Would have been great to see him back. But as for the fights that are happening at 206, Nikita Krylov and Misha Serkinov is just an awesome, awesome fight. Nikita Krylov, I have him at 5th in the UFC. I might just be drinking his Kool-Aid a lot, but his striking is just beautiful. That head kick he hit on Ed Herman, man, excellent stuff. And also the way he shut down Francimar Barroso before he submitted him. Yeah, Nikita Krylov has really figured out his game after a little bit of a rough start to the UFC, to his UFC career. Definitely one of the future stars at light heavyweight in a division that is desperate for it. Same thing with Misha Serkinov. He's a future star at 205 pounds. Came into the UFC, crushed Alex Nicholson's jaw. Then he defeated Ion Cutelaba in his next fight pretty dominantly. And yeah, he's built like a heavyweight. He's got a very, very thick frame. And Krylov is more of a lanky-ish guy, I would say. He's well built. He's definitely a lot taller than most light heavyweights. And he's got a very, very wide arsenal of striking. He's got that Russian background, or the Ukrainian, I should say, more specifically. So that's going to be a great fight of light heavyweight prospects. Do I agree with putting two light heavyweight prospects against each other in a division that is just barren of prospects? I don't know. Don't think so. You kind of want to build these guys up, and there's definitely a lot of huge veteran names that you can definitely build them off of in the light heavyweight division. So, it's tough. So one will have to have a setback as they're surging to the top. Maybe the winner gets Jimmy Manuwa. Who knows? He made a huge statement by knocking out OSP, and one of these guys will make a huge statement saying, I deserve to be a top 10, maybe even top 5, in my opinion, opponent. Light heavyweight division's a little tough to look at. A lot of guys coming off losses, a lot of guys at the tail end of their career, which is very, very, very good. Got Anthony Johnson, Alexander Gustafsson, Ryan Bader. Now Jimmy Manuwa's in the mix. Daniel Cormier, the champion, and then I have Krylov right there too. So after that, it's kind of a little iffy. A lot of guys, a lot of old veterans. But the best fight announcement, in my opinion, of the week, Cub Swanson versus Doo Ho Choi. Doo Ho Choi politely asked for Cub Swanson as an opponent after he knocked out Thiago Tavares in July, and the UFC agreed. Choi is getting a top 5 opponent, and that's just awesome. He deserves it. He's one of the best talents at featherweight. He just hasn't fought enough since signing with the UFC, pulled out of a few fights. I think 2 of them with Sam Sicilia. Then he eventually fought Sam Sicilia. So he's definitely has some of the best striking in the weight class, and he's a future champion in my opinion. And this fight against Cub Swanson will definitely accelerate that path. Swanson definitely a respected veteran of the game, coming off that nice victory over Hakran Diaz. And he's got a very wide variety of striking. He's used capoeira kicks in the past, very unique kicking techniques, and very heavy punches too. And he can mix his game up. You saw it against Hakran Diaz where he was mixing up some takedowns too. So very, very good matchup for Choi. If he wins this one, definitely more top 5 opponents coming his way. He'll accelerate to the top where he deserves to be. And yeah, sorry. Definitely great matchmaking there. I'm glad Choi is getting accelerated to the top because he deserves it. Definitely a future talent. His punching power is just phenomenal, and he does it while just looking like it's another day at the job. Future star, Doo Ho Choi. Future star, future champion. He can beat most guys at 45 right now, and he'll get his first top 5 opponent here. 3-0 in the UFC, all by vicious knockout. I love it. Doo Ho Choi, one of my favorite prospects. Well, I mean, with this fight, he might be shedding the title of prospect now. So definitely good to see. After the debacle that was UFC Manila, Ricardo Lamas now has a new opponent for November 5th, Charles Oliveira. Great matchup. Lamas likes to wrestle. Oliveira has some of the trickiest jiu-jitsu in the featherweight division, if not the game. I mean, just look at the list of submissions he's pulled off. Calf slicer, reverse anaconda chokes. It's very, very unique on the ground. And if Ricardo Lamas tries to wrestle with him, that'll be very interesting grappling exchanges. Because Lamas is definitely great on the ground. And as far as wrestling and top control goes. And then there's Charles Oliveira, who's just a jiu-jitsu expert. So hopefully that fight is fought on the mat. It's one of those fights where I want to see them grapple. But I mean, it's not like they're not willing and able strikers. They definitely can hang around on the feet. But 2 experts of ground I definitely want to see that fight after a takedown happens. Yeah, Ricardo Lama's still hanging around the top five. Oliveira coming off that disappointing submission loss to Anthony Pettis. Oliveira didn't do bad. He had Anthony Pettis' back a few times, but he just couldn't hold position. So, I mean, BJ Penn, his career is likely over after pulling out of another comeback attempt. Ricardo Lamas said, I want to give my kids a good Christmas, and the UFC is giving him the opportunity to. November 5th in Mexico City. Ricardo Lamas won his last fight in Mexico against Diego Sanchez, looked very good in that fight. Then he had that brawl against Max Holloway at UFC 199, I should say. Yeah, hopefully Lamas is thinking takedown. I definitely want to see what happens when this fight hits the ground. It's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting. Another main event was announced recently. Derek Lewis is back, the Black Beast, after his victory against Roy Nelson, his slightly controversial victory. A lot of people were valuing a takedown in that fight. Roy Nelson hit 7, didn't do much with them. And whenever the fight was on the feet, Lewis was just blasting Roy Nelson with hooks. And that last one in the third round was just beautiful. It would have knocked everyone's head clean off, but Roy Nelson has a chin from the heavens, it seems. So instead of fighting Marcin Tybura, Lewis will fight Shamil Abdurakhimov in the main event. And Lewis is not taking him lightly, I think. He's tweeted saying with the meme of Conor McGregor, who the F is that guy? And then I'm taking this long name mother effer seriously. So Lewis always a jokester, always fun follow on Twitter. Abdurakhimov at his best, he's a very active boxer, a volume puncher, and Derek Lewis, kind of the opposite. He's going to put you out with one strike. Lewis is planning on emptying the gas tank, he said, against Marcin Tybura. Maybe he'll have the same strategy here. But does have some good cardio. He can go for 3 rounds. I mean, 5 rounds actually in this fight as a main event. I can't see Lewis going 5 rounds at all, so he'll have to push for that stoppage in the beginning, or else we're going to see some really sloppy heavyweight action at the end. Co-main event was Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Hamilton, so you're showcasing future talent, Ngannou and Lewis, or at least that seems like the plan. Give them beatable opponents, have them both knock him out, and then maybe, just maybe, have Lewis fight Ngannou, which would be fantastic. Also on that card, top bantamweights Aljamain Sterling and Rafael Sunsao. Just love that fight. Sterling has been calling for this fight for a while. Instead, he got Brian Caraway, which he also called for. So he was calling out everybody during that whole contract situation. And this is a very good fight. Sunsao, very well-rounded. He can strike. He can grapple. Definitely a well-rounded guy. But in my opinion, Aljamain Sterling has the best grappling in the bantamweight division. I mean, you could say that Brian Caraway out-grappled him, but that was after Aljamain Sterling just dominated him in the first round, but blew his energy looking for a full Nelson submission. Sterling's still not confident on the feet. Still throws a lot of rangy kicks, tries to keep guys off him, and then shoots in for a takedown. Maybe he'll be thinking the same thing here. I can't see him staying on the feet for a long time with the Sunset, who definitely is a very good striker, definitely able-bodied on the feet. And I think the ground exchange will be interesting. Same thing as the Oliveira and Lamas fight. Sterling is very, very unique with his jiu-jitsu. Saw that in the fight where he had arm triangle from open guard, which was absolutely fantastic. Just amazing. Takei Mizugaku was on top of him, and Aljamain Sterling submitted him from the bottom with an arm triangle. That's usually done from top mount, and because you get the pressure on that shoulder, and Sterling turned it around, and he didn't have gravity on his side, but still pulled off the submission, which was just fantastic. He also tried that full Nelson on Brian Caraway, which was pretty funny to watch. So I have on Cage Rages, at least we have a Sunsao at 6, Sterling at 7. So great matchmaking here. And I mean, if heavyweights are always exciting, so I guess that's why they're pushing those two in the main and co-main, because this is definitely the most important fight on the card. Sterling versus Sun Tzu. Also on the card, Corey Anderson will fight Sean O'Connell. Sean O'Connell's a brawler. Last time Corey Anderson fought a brawler, it was Gian Villante, and that was a really fun fight on the night. I believe Gian Villante won in the third round of the TKO. But Corey Anderson is another light heavyweight prospect. I thought he beat Shogun Rua, but the judges gave it to Rua. If it weren't for those two knockdowns at the end of the round, that would have been a clear win for Corey Anderson. Sean O'Connell, of course, one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. Coming off that loss against Steve Bosse, where they just went to war for 3 rounds at UFC Ottawa. O'Connell survived a couple knockdowns. Bosse survived a couple knockdowns. Just incredible fighting. Brawling, I should say, actually. So Corey Anderson definitely not afraid to brawl. We've seen it in the past against Gian Villante, so this should definitely be kept an eye on as the fight of the night for that card. Hot prospect Tatiana Suarez will be back at UFC Albany against Juliana Lima. Very beatable opponent. Tatiana Suarez looked amazing in her UFC debut against Amanda Cooper to win the Ultimate Fighter. Juliana Lima coming off a loss against Carla Esparza where she was just blanketed. So despite her jiu-jitsu background, she is susceptible to a good wrestling top game. And Tatiana Suarez definitely has a great grappling game. That's what has people excited. Her grappling is just fantastic. She had a submission win to win the Ultimate Fighter. And definitely one of the future names to watch at strawweight. Speaking of strawweight, main event for UFC Sacramento, an awesome one. Michelle Waterson hopefully makes it a fight night this time against Paige Van Zandt. And Waterson is extremely talented. She's just been injured. She's pulled out of 2 fights so far in her UFC career, only made a UFC debut so far in July of last year. I was at that fight. It was a good dominant performance against Angela Magana, eventually getting the 3rd round rear naked choke. And since then, she's pulled out of fights with Tisha Torres and Aisling Daly. But now she lands Paige Van Zandt. Van Zandt coming off that brutal knockout against Beck Rawlings, which is just fantastic. Jumping switch kick. I mean, who saw that coming from the usually scrappy brawler? She wasn't as aggressive to get a clinch going in the fight against Rawlings. She was very content with skirting around the octagon, waiting for her opportunity. She had a couple clinches, but it was mostly just waiting for that big knockout blow, and she threw that switch kick a couple times, and eventually it hit. Very stubborn, but hey, paid off. So Waterson can hang around on the feet and on the ground. Her fight against Jessica Penne in Invicta is a must-watch. 5 rounds of back-and-forth grappling, which was just fantastic. And then she beat Tamata in her first title defense, and that was just a striking clinic that she put on. So definitely a dangerous opponent for Paige Van Zandt. I don't know if the UFC knows how dangerous she is, because they have had a tendency to try to build up Van Zandt slowly. And, I mean, those plans went awry when Joanne Calderwood got injured, and then Rose Namajunas stepped in and dominated. I was thinking they would make the Calderwood fight again, but they don't know what they have here in Waterson. Definitely a dangerous opponent for Paige Van Zandt. So if she chooses to grapple, Michelle Waterson can definitely hang on the mat. She's done it with the best of them. She has some great submissions in her career. I believe it's a 5th round armbar that she hit on Jessica Penne. So definitely a dangerous opponent for Paige Van Zandt. That fight joins Mickey Gall and Sage Northcutt on the Sacramento card, which is a really fun fight. I believe I've talked about it on one of the previous episodes. So far, very good, very attractive card. Yeah, matching up Sage Northcutt and Mickey Gall, both decent looking. And then you have Michelle Watterson and Paige Van Zandt. Absolutely two of the most attractive fighters at strawweight. So you get Sage Northcutt, who's just a chiseled, like it looks like a statue, a Greek statue, and then you have Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Watterson in the main event. So we'll see who else they put on this card. Maybe Luke Rockhold wants a short break. Try to make this the most attractive fight card ever. But in all seriousness, love that main event. Hopefully it's a coming out party for Michelle Watterson on Fox. Hopefully she makes the fight night this time. That's what I'm hoping for. I just want to see this fight happen. I want to see Michelle Watterson in the octagon again. She's a great, great talent. Just isn't on people's radars because of all these injuries that she's had. Lastly, kind of want to discuss the bantamweight title situation. Apparently, Dominic Cruz has good news coming his way, and it should be his next fight announcement. I haven't announced who it is yet, but the two options everyone's looking at are TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. Put a poll out on Cage Page's Twitter asking who should get that title shot, and looks like the majority of people are saying Cody Garbrandt. I do think TJ Dillashaw deserves that rematch. It was a very close fight. Definitely one I'd watch again. But I would totally understand if Cody Garbrandt gets that shot. Can definitely sell that fight. And I don't think either of them are going to beat Dominic Cruz. I think he's going to hold that title for a very long time just because of his style. It's just so hard to figure out offensively and defensively. But if the people want to see Cody Garbrandt, might as well give it to them. Got a lot of pop in his hands, and if he can catch Dominic Cruz, which is much easier said than done, we might have a new title holder at bantamweight. And it's been a year of title changes, so we'll see. Maybe that goes on the 207 card. Maybe that saves 206. We'll see. But definitely looking forward to Dominic Cruz's next fight. Took a break after TJ Dillashaw, the TJ Dillashaw fight. No, the Uriah Faber fight, I should say. Had some injuries to deal with. But he should be back soon, according to Dana White. One of those big pay-per-views definitely has his name on it. So I think that's it. I think that's all I have to cover. Maybe we'll have a midweek sparring. We'll see. Depends on what fights are announced in between now and then. Just gonna be back Sunday on VIC Radio, 7 a.m. next week to talk about the latest fight announcements because that's all there is right now. Nothing really to discuss and break down as far as events go the morning after. So, I mean, I do welcome this UFC break. 8 weeks straight of UFC action was just a lot. Fortunately, that UFC Manila card got canceled and this break gets extended. Because we're going to have the UFC is going to sprint to the finish. A lot of cards planned for the end of 2016. I believe 9 or 10. And I think there's one week without UFC. And a couple of weeks where I think UFC Albany comes right before UFC 206. Yeah, 2 pay-per-views in a month. They did that with 200 and 201. So it's a lot of action to end the year. It's going to be fun finish. Unfortunately, no GSP, though. That would have been amazing. That would have been a crazy end to the year. Imagine that. McGregor, GSP, Ronda, all in a row. That was Shadowboxing this Sunday. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week, 7 a.m., vicradio.org.